Hi, my name is Dedee Cully. I'm one of the newest contributors to join the Glioblastoma Support Network. I was recently asked to introduce myself and my connection to GBM and cannabis. I thought, given our current physical distancing and, dare I say, isolation for many of us, that allowing you to see and hear me might be a more personal introduction. I'm an RN of over 20 years and a cannabis nurse. Yes, a marijuana nurse. I'm a nurse that looks at a whole person rather than just their disease. But over the last 10 to 15 years, I've seen so many more pharmaceuticals used and people getting sicker rather than better that I decided about 5 or 6 years ago to look more into natural plants and homeopathic approaches to care. So that's how I arrived into the cannabis space. At least that's part of the story. It's now mid-September 2020, with many of you beginning to see the winds of change and fall arriving. For me, it's already a time of reflection and a time to celebrate some victories. You see, I met my husband just over 10 years. He was a widow and I was divorced, each bringing 2 children into the picture. Our oldest, a boy and a girl, are both in their early 30s now. Each are married, and we have 3 amazing grandchildren. Our third son is in college, and the youngest, a senior in high school. We married 6.5 years ago and have truly been living our dreams together. 2 summers ago, our daughter got engaged, and we were planning the wedding of all weddings. If you have an only daughter, you know exactly what I mean. It was an exciting time, though, as we came into fall and we were preparing for their engagement party. Little did I know that my husband had experienced what he called an episode while sitting in the school parking lot to pick our youngest son up. It was a very brief sensation in his left arm and bicep that he said tingled, which apparently is a term he learned in the military after 26 years to deflect what you and I would call pain. Anyway, he didn't say much about it until the week after the engagement party, when I watched him get up from the kitchen chair with his cup of coffee and begin walking into the living room, only to be stopped beside a chair and abruptly sit down. He was having another episode. But this time, it involved the entire left side of his body. I went into nurse mode and assessed for what appeared to be a possible stroke. Maybe just a mini stroke or a TIA. I wasn't completely sold because something was different. It all happened so quickly and resolved just as fast. It may have lasted a minute and a half. So I called the cardiologist, who obviously sent us to the emergency, where my husband underwent hours of waiting, test, questions, more waiting, more test, more questions. You know that drill. In the end, we were sent home to follow up with the cardiologist the next day because the ER was convinced it had to be his heart. They mentioned that they had done an MRI, which I knew, but the tech nor the machine were in the greatest of shape, and they wanted more complete readings before they said anything. I just kind of left it at that. I was just happy to get him back home. The next afternoon, we sat in the cardiologist's office talking about our upcoming trip to Florida. We were going to go to the beach for a week, and we were more than ready. The doc was reading through the reports. He and I dialogued about the lack of conclusion and that he was adamant that this was not about my husband's heart. I reminded him of the MRI again, and I said, that's the only result that I could not see the results of. And he said, well, I can. So he read them. And as he read, he said, and I quote, I knew it wasn't his heart. He has a brain tumor. It was dead silence. Until, of course, I screamed out, what? Not quite in those tones or terms. And he said, come read. So I read over his shoulder on the computer the same devastating news that many of you watching have read or have heard. Our lives were forever changed that day. For us, it would be another 6 months before we would get those dreaded words that many of you have heard already, and many of you have lost your loved ones even sooner. Grade 4 glioblastoma. I know we're incredibly blessed because of the time we've been given, since many patients never see 6 months or even a year. But despite that blessing, it just wasn't enough for me. Like you, I was told the statistics, the prognosis, drastically reduced quality of life, and that we have surgery, radiation, chemotherapy as our only options. And while technology has improved, the outcomes have not improved in the last 20 to 30 years. Obviously, like you, I was shocked, I was in disbelief, and yes, I was very angry. But as a longtime nurse, I had to ask questions. And let me tell you, I ask a lot of them. And in the end, I simply said to the doctors, no, this isn't going to work for me. I'm not willing to just take the standard of care and simply sit back and watch this cancer steal the love of my life. So I began researching adjunct therapies. Realistically, I knew that Western medicine's standard of care, although it's great, would not be enough. So I began a deep dive into what would be the most promising for us. The results were a couple of key therapies. First is something called metabolic pathway blocking. If you're not familiar with it, or the Care Oncology Clinic, I'd encourage you to check out a book called How to Starve Cancer by Jane McClellan. We'll put a link in the comments below. Second, I found that cannabis, marijuana, holds some of the greatest and most promising research out there, despite the doctor's dislike of that. Luckily for us, our state had recently voted to accept medical marijuana, so we were able to provide that to my husband legally. At that point, I honestly only wanted to spend time with my husband, enjoy every minute we have together, because I don't know when it's going to end. But God had a plan that I cannot deny. He made it very clear that I am to continue helping people with the gifts He gave me as a nurse. So I started Two Leaf Nurses. We provide education, advocacy, and collaboration with and for our patients and their families, healthcare professionals that they work with and others, and communities regarding cannabis, medical marijuana, and other therapeutics. It's been through that venture that I met Lisa here at the Glioblastoma Support Network. And it's through that connection that I'm able to share with you my connection to cannabis and GBM. It's not one I would wish on anyone, but here I am, and I'm here to serve you. If you have questions or topics you want me to cover in the future, please contact Glioblastoma Support Network or myself. I want to provide you with the information that you need. What about my husband, you ask? Well, as of today, September 15th, 2020, my husband is not only still with me, he's working full-time. He's not had a seizure in over 16 months. He drives. We ride his motorcycle. He is back to exercising, and he shows no signs of slowing down. Is the tumor still there? Yes. There was no resection, only biopsies. Is the tumor still a grade 4? Yes. Has the tumor shrunk or become less dense? Yes. And are the doctors shocked? Oh, you bet they are. I know, though, that this is not the story that most of you get to share. But it should be. It absolutely should be. We know, my husband and I, that we are blessed beyond measure. And we know that the adjunct therapies that we have provided have given the additional help to him that he has needed. If you'd like to know more about Two Leaf Nurses and what we do, please visit us at twoleafnurses.com. We'll put the link in the comments below. I'm excited to be a part of the Glioblastoma Support Network. And until my next blog, take care and be safe.